Alrighty, welcome everybody, and I hope you are well seated with food in hand. It's lunchtime on a Monday here, and this is a special edition of Talk to Me. We started this show late in 2020, and this was actually a podcast form show, but we were always talking. Me and Shashi, the producer, who unfortunately this time around he can always hide by not showing himself. Usually, when we're in the studio, you'll see him, but well, we started the show as a podcast, really trying to find ways to actually give insights to everybody on different topics, and it's usually a discussion, it's usually a conversation. We've been talking about trying to do a live stream, and here's the opportunity, doing a live stream. And it's actually in conjunction with this week we are running here at Leaderonomics. So everybody out there who's listening to us this week about reimagining, renewing, and rebounding, the 3 R's, if we call it. I call it the driving force for this past few years as the world has changed, especially for businesses, people, and organizations and their lives. But it's something we're forced to do. So we're going to actually talk about that with our own story. Our own story here is actually the Leaderonomics digital story, what we went through, our sort of origin stories, and where we are right now. So I'm joined this time by two guests, and you may know them, you may not know them. So let me introduce them first and foremost. Firstly, we have Sashe Kanapathi, who was actually on our very first episode of Talk to Me, the CEO of Leaderonomics Digital. Let's have him on screen with all the nice naming and everything. There you go. He's appearing. There you go. See, Sashe is saying hi there. He's all lighted up. He's all got his book rack behind him. He's got mirrors all open. And the other person that we are having with us is the other managing member of the Leaderonomics digital team, which is Eva C. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna try to pronounce your second name because I can't. So Eva C, who is head of solutions and services, Budaya. And what is Budaya? You'll know in a short while. So welcome everybody to the show. And yes, we can take down the lower thirds. And I was actually trying to type a comment into the private chat, but Shashi, our producer, you have all control on our comments coming from LinkedIn, from Facebook, and from YouTube. So we are at the mercy of the comments that will appear from you as we have this conversation here today. Okay, so for those of y'all out there, yes, you can comment. You can actually talk to us, whether it's your thoughts or questions as we go through this story. Please do, because that will make the show a whole lot more fun. All right, so let's get into it. And I think the first thing I want to ask is, I think in sequence, each one of us joined Leaderonomics at different times. And the oldie here, or the taikola, I like to call it in Malaysian slang, is actually Eva C. She's the one who joined the earliest. So Eva, my question to you is this: when did you join, and what actually did you join Leaderonomics to do?
Yeah, so I joined back in 2012, believe it or not. So it's been nine years plus now. So just over 9 years actually. Yeah, so when I first joined, I was actually with the editorial team. Back then, we were running the career pullout in the Star, the newspaper. We had a 16-page pullout in the Star that appeared there every Saturday. So I was joining to basically be a part of that team. That was eons ago. A lot has changed since then.
I think you're one of the few people who we can say is a weird one in this day and age. No one stays in a company for 9 years, and you have, which is amazing by its own right. But that's part of the story. I'm going to come back to Eva in a short bit, because this whole story we're talking about today actually starts with her. Sashe, when did you join, and what did you join Leaderonomics for?
I joined in 2016, so it's 5 years now. And for me, when I first joined, I was basically taking over the corporate training portfolio. Then eventually, that became the full corporate portfolio, which is assessments and coaching and things like that. But I mean, I basically joined because throughout my career, I said, listen, the one thing that stands the test of time is leadership development. Is soft skills development. That's transferable. That's what you have. That was the secret to success that I saw everywhere around me. So I said, listen, let me join a company who's passionate about that and see if I can, contribute in that space. That was kind of my origin story on how I came to Leaderonomics.
And for myself, Sashe is the one that actually hired me into Leaderonomics in the first place. I'm probably the baby in this group, because I joined
no more 2000.
3 years. 3 years now.
18.
Is it 18? I think so. About 3 years now. 3 years now that I've been here, and trust me, if anybody were to join Leaderonomics, even 3 years feels like a very long time, because there's a lot of things that happen along the way. And I think let's get to that story. That's the important thing here today. So I'm going to start with Eva, because from what I hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, from what I hear, the story of Leaderonomics Digital actually started with you, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
correct?
Well, it started with Roshan. I was there.
That's all things do.
That's all things do. Well, we know that part, but I mean, like, here in this scope, like, what was the story? How did it start, and how did that conversation go?
So that was back in 2015, actually. So this was a little bit earlier than the time that we've actually established Leaderonomics Digital as a separate company entity altogether. We were basically doing the corporate work that we do when it comes to leadership development, and Roshan was basically looking at how do we move a little bit further ahead, like look into the future. Future is very digital, which is kind of coming together right now nicely. So essentially looking at, how do we look at training as something that is not really for very small groups in organizations, but how do we democratize it, how we spoke about it back then? How do we make it for everyone? How do we make it accessible to everyone across the organization so that everyone gets a chance to go through whatever training it is that they need? So when we looked at it, we didn't know much about digital learning back then. We looked at it in terms of, having a learning management system of some sort in organizations. How do we do this in a very affordable way, trying to reach as many learning styles, as many learning needs as possible across the organization? How do we make it cheap? How do we make it affordable so even SMEs can actually have access to it? And that's when we first came up with our very initial sort of digital solution, which was the course networking LMS that we had. I think this was way before your time, Nigesh. So I don't know whether you're familiar with it at all.
I did when I joined in. Like, I was asked to join this, but I have to admit, I am so sorry that I did not use it much. So, but
yeah, I think it was towards the end. I think it was already the point that we were already sort of innovating and moving towards newer solutions. So
right. So when Roshan came to you and spoke to you about this, did you think he was crazy?
No, I didn't actually. Surprise!
Surprise!
I didn't. I think it really made a lot of sense. We were talking about, how do we make sure that we have a solution for content that is there? I mean, content should be accessible to all at any given time. You shouldn't really have to go for a class, wait for the class, plan for it, schedule, arrange some hotel room, and go through all these different processes. So how do you offer the content in that form, and then you contextualize it with more specific, more targeted training or coaching solutions that you have on top of it? So it actually made perfect sense in my head.
Right. There's a weird thought here, like, because I came from a background which I was working in MNCs before coming to Leaderonomics, and we speak about digital like as if this is a very new thing. But I remember back then when I was there, we had HRMS systems which had some sort of learning component to it. But then my thought is this, or my question to both of y'all actually at this point is, why does it feel like everyone thinks that, oh, digital is so new, but it's been around for a very long time?
I mean, I can jump in here, and it's interesting because Eva, when I joined in 2016, and I was kind of like, applying to Leaderonomics, so to speak. One of the first headlines I saw, of course, Google search and things like that, was this press release of this collaboration that was signed between Leaderonomics and Course Networking in the US, which is out of a university. I can't remember the university's name. And so that was actually my first introduction to Leaderonomics, was that. So I was like, oh, wow, okay, so they're doing something in the digital space. But Nigesh, you were right. Back in 2016, right, I think major big companies had invested in LMSs. But it wasn't, prolific. It wasn't everybody, right? And so I think, one of the things that Eva spoke about, which I thought was interesting, is they started off looking at the SME space, right? There was a big push in the SME space to make it affordable, and it was a really affordable solution. So I thought it was a good problem to go after, saying, we should make this accessible to everyone, and then doing that. So I think that's where it wasn't around for everyone. It was around for the big players, but it wasn't really available.
Yeah, and I think also then, okay, maybe it was sort of new-ish in a sense that it is technology that's being adopted, and we know every new technology always is expensive at the beginning. So as much as we wanted to try to go after the SME space, or anybody try to go after the SME space, it's a bit too expensive at that point. But I think we've come a long way, and we'll come to that story in a bit. But then let's talk about how it grew. So Eva, like how many were there at the very beginning? You and?
So when we first started out, we actually started as a sort of a part-time committee that sort of came about from everywhere across Leaderonomics. So the idea was, let's just, do a little bit of research around this and try to figure out what's the best way to approach this. How do we put a course together that is a lot more effective and powerful than the usual way of doing digital courses back then, which was essentially back then it was either the SCORM content that you have through the big companies that they have their LMSs that were very costly, very hard to produce. They had to actually pay a lot of money for one course and all that. Or the other one was things like lynda.com, which was the LinkedIn Learning before. So it was very specific, the way that it was presented back then. So the idea was, how do we make this better? So there was a lot of research that was put together in that form before we actually set up an official team. But we did actually have a team, towards the end of the year, when we sort of officially made this, a team that is worth being a team on its own. We did have a team of, I think it was myself and 2-3 people working on content, one person working on technology, and I doubled up for sales. So I think we started with that. And
like
then over
everything
time,
in
we sort of
Leaderonomics.
added a couple more people,
Like everything in Leaderonomics, we double up for a lot of things. But okay, let me pivot the conversation a bit differently right now, because that actually reminded me of something that till today, as much as, yes, it does eat up a lot of energy, but I think is something that is very, very hard to find in any other organization. And I think more should adopt it, but it's kind of hard to see why people don't. This nature of wanting to try things, this nature or will of the bravery to actually want to try something, do something new, form people or form small groups that are actually going to kind of craft new solutions into the market. So this is something I enjoyed a lot here, because I'll go into my story a bit more later, but I've shifted roles so many times because we're trying so many things within this small space of time. But that's the key here, right? Because if Roshan didn't come up with that idea all that long time ago and say that, okay, let's start doing something. Let's start doing things. And Roshan already put up a comment. If you can bring that up, Sashe. Roshan already put a comment here. The future is definitely digital. Bagus. And Zinin as well. Thanks for joining in, Zinin. Every game changer sparks from a crazy idea. And that's the point, right? It starts from an idea. But let me ask this question to both of you. Like, why? We know shifts or changes are important, and someone needs the bravery to actually do it. But why is it so hard for most companies to just do it? Just pick up something, try to ideate on it, try to build on it, try to go crazy on it, and then come up with the other end. Whether it works into something or not, doesn't matter, but they learn something for it. Why don't most companies try to do these kind of things?
Maybe I can take that. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's safety, right? So it's two things, right? You need to have the right type of people, and the second is the company must have the willpower to kind of drive that through, right? So a lot of times we're going to do what works. We're going to do what is safe. We're going to do what brings in the money, right? So if you want to take an experiment, you want to do something new, you're actually taking away from something. And to be able to take away from something that's generating revenue or take away from something that works, you have to, cross this big barrier of belief and overcome your fears and things like that. But at the same time, like Eva brought up a really good thing, which we do a lot in Leaderonomics. It's like this committee of people who are wearing just an extra hat. It's not your role, right? It's not your day job. You're kind of wearing like an extra hat and say, can you guys come together and drive this forward? I think that requires an individual to be willing to do that, an individual to willing to do a little bit extra. But I think one thing that's really cool about Leaderonomics is that, we always talk about it from a place of learning and growth, right? As a company, this is for learning and growth. As an individual, this will give you opportunity to learn and grow, right? Because only by doing things outside your day job will you learn and grow faster. And so I think that messaging and that intent helps us do it a little bit more than others. Right. And then, having a leader like Roshan, who is, always fearless, always optimistic. I think, that kind of DNA kind of infuses into others as well.
Yeah, I agree with that optimistic thing. Sometimes I wonder where he gets it from, because we'll be thinking, really, Roshan, like, can we really do this? But he still pushes for it. And if we look at it in the short term, then maybe we didn't get what we intended, but there was something that we got from it in the long term. And I'll tell that story in a short while later on. There's something I really want to bring up, which Roshan did just late last year, which we all thought was never going to work. It didn't quite work, but we actually learned so much from that exercise by itself, right? And I think the other thing that you mentioned there is about that comfort level actually pulling away, right? And sometimes it's good to make it a culture, like something I try to abide by. I think I've learned this from actually Mario Bolanos, who was my mentor last time when I was in Texas Instruments. Every person who works should never, or any organization should structure itself to have people working in the manner where 60% of their time is on their key task, on their role, what they're supposed to deliver, their KPIs. Yes, it should be that. But 30% of their time should look to expand or make that 60% irrelevant. That should be their time, 30%. And 10% should be something completely wild, something completely out there, which it's beyond what they do. That way you're actually putting it, or you're making it as part of the company culture to actually drive some level of change, or being agile at the same time. And speaking of agility, this is where, Sashe, I'm going to ask you this question, because, okay, fine, we started with CN, right? That's where we started from.
Yep.
But we had the early growing pains. And I remember the time where I came in, you already were saying, look, I'm here for now. It's another 4 months more, and then I'm going to go focus on Leaderonomics Digital. And at that point, all my awareness was actually CN. And then suddenly I started seeing all these other different solutions coming up. So how do we go from CN, and why did we start picking these solutions that led to what we have now?
Right. Well, actually, I was double hatting. So just like we were talking about double hatting, right? Even when I hired you, right, we were already double hatting. That's something that's also important when we talk about double hatting, right? You can only double hat for so long. At some point, if you're showing traction, you should dedicate resources and effort and investments into it so that you can grow faster. Right? So I was double hatting corporate and digital. And then, obviously when the team was ready, I moved over to digital full time. But one of the things was, we looked at what we had, and the solution was great from a low cost point of view, but it wasn't going to get us where we needed to go, because by that time we already had, 2019, we already had lots and lots of solutions out there that was way more advanced, way more corporate, way more usable, that we thought we could leverage. So we shifted, right? So we said, listen, the initial focus was SMEs. We're now trying to expand ourselves. We found a niche, which was that a lot of people were not very good at implementing systems. So we started looking at how do we collaborate and partner with other products out there. We initially we thought we'll develop our own product, right? So that'll be very unique, Leaderonomics. We did that. We did some experiments. I don't know whether you guys know that or not, but we actually built a few products on the side with
I didn't know that.
IT. Yeah. So we had one guy leading it, and then we had outsourced IT. So we were developing it, and I was kind of test out product fit.
Right.
But then there were really good products in the market. And then, the question was, why are we trying to reinvent something when somebody's already done it really well, right? So now that there's somebody who's done it really well, what are the problems that they're having with that? Actually, it was implementing customer success, because we knew HR, we knew L&D, we knew corporates. A lot of companies out there were product companies. They knew tech. They built a product, but they didn't really understand how that product should be used, or what's the best way to implement or best way to leverage it. So we became that middle person, right? So then we started building partnerships with different people. And then it started making sense. Leaderonomics is a diagnostic company. We're a consulting company, right? So then it said, okay, let us work to our strengths. Let's diagnose what clients are need, and then leverage our partnerships and bring in the right product. So we don't have to be a single product company like a lot of product companies are.
Right.
We can be a multi-product company. Okay, so we explored that business model. And then eventually we realized that, okay, listen, we need to build some IP on top of that. And, that's when Necole comes in, and you can talk about that as well.
Right.
So we evolved, we saw the need, we saw the gaps, and we evolved.
Yeah. So, Eva, what happened to you during this point of this story? Because when I came in, you were the person heading our research and research department. So, where did that kind of shift happen?
So I think that was before Sashe even came in the picture for Leaderonomics Digital. We had someone else heading Leaderonomics Digital right after I moved out for a bit. Essentially, we were talking with Roshan about starting a proper research and development team for Leaderonomics. And we were having that conversation for a few years even before that. So when the opportunity sort of came by, I thought, okay, maybe this makes more sense for, based on the experience that I had and all that. We built the solution for CN, or what we had at that point for Leaderonomics Digital. We had a few clients that were already in. So it was already getting started, and we needed someone to make it even more, bring in a lot more sales. So we needed a lot more emphasis on the sales side. So given that my focus was more on the content development, it sort of made sense for me to move to the R&D side at that point. Essentially I just left the team for 3 years plus, I guess.
And we got you back in.
So many years. So I just moved to the other side of the office. No, I was sitting on the same side of the office for a while. Just one aisle down, and we just kept moving. It was definitely really exciting though, because once Sashe came in, we started exploring a lot of additional solutions, that the emphasis was no longer just on the learning side of things, but bringing in things like mentoring and engagement and all that. And that's where it became really interesting as well, because it was a lot more holistic and more strategic for HR.
Right. So before I start shifting to that question, let's take some of the comments that we have here that came up. Let's see. We have Nadira here. Oh, okay. That's actually quite a good comment from Nadira. Let's bring that up. She's actually watching us on YouTube. I believe the company also has to have a lot of trust in their employees to expand out of their assigned jobs, which is true. Yeah, there is actually trust required, that that they're still going to do what they need to do, at the same time help the company grow. Something here from Andrea. I think this one is funny. Leaderonomics opened their closet a row of hats. Oh, so true. Okay, so let's shift the conversation a little bit, and this is probably leading into the midpoint. All right. First and foremost, maybe a point to both of y'all. I want to ask you this question. Sashe kind of brought this up. So we decided to we started trying to design our own, and then we looked into the market. But that whole argument between businesses want to own something, they want to have something tangible that they have that's their own IP per se, right? And that argument between having your own and going out and getting a services. So are we missing something here, that we don't have our own IP, and in the end we're at the mercy of everybody else out there?
Well, my take on that is that companies must have value and differentiation. It doesn't only come in the form of IP. IP is one way to have value and differentiation, right?
Right.
So you can have different value. You can, and we can come to that later as well. Like, if you're a content creator, you're creating IP. But if a content curator, you're delivering value, but you don't have IP, right? And curation can be IP as well. So I think I think we evolved into that kind of thinking, saying that, listen, we're not a tech company. So maybe focusing on IP is not the right thing for now. We will get there, right? So that'll come to the end of the story. But the idea was, how can we add value and differentiation with our curation, with our market access, with our customer centricity, with our understanding of HR. So I think we do have value and differentiation. It's just not in the form of IP. And I don't think, that is a bad thing. That's my
What do you think? And what do you think, Eva? You can disagree, you don't have to agree on everything.
I know. I do agree though. I think we need to be very clear on where exactly we stand, and I think, yes, the way that Sashe mentioned, the strength that we have is more on the expertise from the HR perspective, understanding HR, helping companies apply what it is that we provide. So not so much the building the platform and the technology behind it, but more the how do you make sure that this works in your organization. And I think that's definitely something that is quite valuable. There's definitely space for it. It's just just how do we make sure that the value actually shows and we actually bring it forward.
Right. So this is where I fight with myself a lot. And I think Sashe, I never said it out to Sashe openly, but I think he got the hints of it whenever I spoke about it. I do like, and I realize that I do like to have something which is our own, like our own thing. Like we created that thing and no one else has this thing, kind of thing. But I think it's a mix of what convinced me otherwise was, what is exactly going to be the thing that we own? And what if we kind of hedge our bets right now, right here, when we haven't had a full, proper realization of the market, what the market's going to be like, what we're going to bring to the market, especially the right fit to what everybody needs out there. So is this the time to hedge our bets and do something like that? Because building something from scratch is very resource intensive. And while you're building, you can't do anything else. That's not going out of the market anywhere. You're not putting it out anywhere. So I came around to it.
So sorry to interrupt, Nigesh, but the other thing is that the market changes so fast.
Exactly.
So unless you can build it and bring it to market in a year, 2 years from now the market's different. So you can't take too long to build it either, right? So there's this really fine balancing act, I think.
Yep. So before we shift to what happened last year, maybe to ask this question, like so Sashe, you were at the forefront of this when this happened, right? The kind of suite of solutions we had right now, that first draft of what are we going to pick to become our solutions or become whatever we have right now. So what made you and Roshan and the team back then pick the ones that we have right now, which is, yes, we have Necole, yes, we have Budaya, which was previously Happily, we have Mentor Cloud, we have Leaderonomics Academy. What made you pick those things?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you that I had this strategic plan and Roshan had this plan and that it was all laid out and it all came together beautifully and we knew exactly what we were doing, but that would be a total lie. We kind of just figured things out as we went along. So I knew that having that one product which had its gaps that we couldn't overcome wasn't going to cut it. We knew that we needed to move into services. We knew that we needed to have a suite of products. But then we looked out. I mean, so just continuously researching and saying, one of the really good things is that having a brand like Leaderonomics, when I reach out to partners and talk to them, they're very open to discussing with us and negotiating with us and coming to terms with us. So the brand carries a lot of value. But and some of it was serendipity. Somebody connected me to somebody, and then I evaluated the product. But one thing we did is we evaluate the products, right? What I'm trying to look for is the best products out there that the Malaysian market needed, that wasn't available yet. That was the criteria, right? Now, how I came across the products or how Roshan came across the products, some of it was just random connections and things like that. But we always evaluated based on a criteria. Does the Malaysian market need it? Is this a good, solid product? Is there something equivalent, or is this one of the best of its kind? And if it fulfilled those criteria, we tried to bring that into our cabinet, so to speak. Roshan always has this analogy that, you should have a cabinet full of medicine. Then when you go to a client, you talk to them, you diagnose their illness. then you pick out the right medicine from your cabinet to give them, right? So we kind of use that model and say, okay, let's fill up. So we built relationships. We built lots of relationships. Some, became successful relationships. As you know, we now have a suite of products. Some didn't. Some started then died. So we have those as well. But, we don't need to go over those.
Right. And maybe just to quickly put you on the spot, hindsight 2020.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would not have done considering?
I think I probably didn't do a good job transitioning from the old solution and service to what became. Because as you all know, in between, we lost the whole team. Right? There was one team that started. And then when we did this shift, kind of like business model services shift, and I take that on me because I don't know that I didn't communicate that well enough, or it was just too much of a transition, that it wasn't smooth. It was actually very rough. We had to rehire a completely new team to start out in the new products and services, right? So I think that part was a bit rough, and definitely we could have done better.
All right. I've got an anchoring question for you there, Sashe, but let's go around when we talk about this story. So let's start with what happened last year. And we all are still knee-deep in it right now. We all got hit by the pandemic. Every industry out there, everybody out there, whatever services you had to the market, we had to completely rethink it. And I think the three of us here had different perspectives of what was happening last year because we were in three different kind of spaces. Like I remember mine where first day when it was announced Malaysia was going to go into a full lockdown, 18th of March. I remember that. Here comes Roshan walking through the door 10 a.m. in the morning and brought me into a room and said, okay, you know what? Roshan, I thought it was a crazy idea, but we said, what the hell, let's try it. We need to create about 52 different, because potentially he feels that it's going to take 52 days before we even think of coming out of the whole lockdown. Little bit we know it took a lot longer than that, but 52 different 1-hour webinars we have to create it today. And because we want to try to sell it out to there's a body. All right. For those of y'all who know, the body now's name is HRD Corp, but it used to be called HRDF, to actually use them as a vehicle to reach out to all these individuals or in companies who are going to be stuck at home, who don't know what to do. It's at least something they can look forward to in the morning, in the evening, something like that. So he's at 52 topics. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? Let's just give this a go. And we did that in one night. And then that weekend, we confirmed everything. And when that started, the ball rolling, we went through this process of actually completely virtualizing our solution, every single thing that we had, virtualizing every one of them. And I went through this shift of roles from thinking of that running the operations team for the Malaysian setup, and then trying to think globally, like how can we virtualize everything without knowing, is this going to work or not? Without knowing whether this is really going to happen or not. Because then there was a lot of conversations about, you know what, it's going to go back. It's going to go back to what it was. It's going to go back to what it used to be. Everyone's going to want live trainings again. And the market was telling us that. And it was stressful at that time, trying to virtualize everything. And I think one of the key things that hit me at that point was this complete uncertainty. Like day by day, I'll be honest, it was struggle for us here at Leaderonomics, because we were wondering, is this going to be make or break for us, right? And that thankfully we came out on the other side, and that's a success story we'll talk about a bit later. So that was one part of the struggle where a lot of us were trying to figure out how do we survive this storm, and we didn't have any certainty of what we were doing, and we were just trying it. Again, Roshan was the instigator of the idea, but then it went on a few different tangents. So maybe one of the tangents I want to ask Eva, like from your perspective, what did you see happening last year?
Okay, so I was sitting in the R&D team, and we were like, okay, what do we do? How do we help? How do we help everyone? And I think from our perspective was more about how do we equip the team with a better knowledge of what is happening at the moment and what is coming ahead. But the thing is, no one knows, right? And so there was a lot of research and reading about what everyone was talking about. But what really I admire in the different teams in Leaderonomics, whether we're talking about the corporate side or the digital or the community as well, we managed to sort of transform very quickly and typical Leaderonomics style, just go with the flow and sort of reinvent ourselves and come up with solutions that were appropriate for the situation. So from where I was standing, even though I was very back end sort of not really dealing with client solutions at that point, I did see a lot of new ideas come up very, very quickly as to how do we do this in a different way? How do we put together virtual camps for kids? How do we, provide solutions for customers that they really have no clue whether, this is going to be a 15-day thing or whether it's going to take forever for their people to come back to the office. Where do they need to focus even? Like what do they focus on soft skills? Do they focus on more functional sort of topics that we need to teach them through the different things that we put out there? So there was a lot of new activity happening, but I think, despite the stress, despite the the fatigue and all that sort of came in, I think a lot of good things came out of it as well. And I think the team is still, going and coming up with new ideas as we talk today.
I think the stress and fatigue is still there.
Stress and fatigue is still there. I think. Yeah, and I think Eva is still holding back in this conversation because Sashe says this often when we have meetings. The two of us here in this room, which is Eva and myself, have kids at home.
Oh, that
those
was
of y'all,
oh
gosh, for those of y'all who have kids at home, I think you understand that statement. Like being at home, trying to handle the kids at the same time, trying to figure out complete uncertainty out there and trying to work through this and stare at screens, just not easy, and we empathize with you. But let's go to the man who doesn't have a kid. Oh, he has two dogs. So. What was it like for you, like that period of time, that time where COVID hit?
It was strange, like you said, right? There was this kind of optimism that digital is going to take off, right? There was this kind of optimism. So we actually spent a lot of time looking at operations and looking internally at what we can do to kind of support that. But it wasn't the case. There was a lot of other issues that we didn't kind of anticipate. So can you imagine even things like clients didn't have a laptop, so when they were working from home, because they used PCs in the office, so they didn't have something to take home. So that was an issue. Data, people didn't have access to data or good data. That was an issue. And companies were just conserving cash, right? They didn't want to invest in something new at that point because there was a disruption. It wasn't business as usual. So their normal revenue streams got disrupted. So then investments got, held back. So even deals that we had signed got canceled. So strangely enough, going, this pandemic forcing people to go digital wasn't initially a very good thing for digital. Which kind of surprised me, and it's kind of like, okay, listen, let's relook at this again from a fresh set of eyes. So you can't take anything for granted, right? Anytime there's disruption, I think that the lesson from me was, look at it very cleanly again. Don't just assume that this is good or bad for you. There's always an opportunity. There's always something else you can do. It took like a year of people getting used to this as the new normal before people, started investing and coming back again.
Yeah, and I think I resound with that as well because I remember when we were virtualizing all our solutions, and it was the same optimism of like, people are at home, they should now all be going virtual and they want to do this. But then we discovered very quickly that not everybody was ready for it. Whether it is a mindset thing because it's not something they know, so it's something strange to them and they just don't want to adopt it, or like you said, it's a capability thing. It's surprising that we find out that there are clients out there who they don't have their own device, their own laptops. And now in situations like that, what do they focus on? Do they focus on putting in a learning development solution, or do they focus on, okay, my people are going to work from home. Now I need to think about getting them a laptop. So which to focus on? And we here were sort of holding our own hands thinking, what's going on? I thought this is supposed to be the moment where this works. But then, yeah, we started finding different ways, or maybe, I don't know, whether it's finding different ways or the market shifting towards us, or maybe it's because there were changes happening in different companies for different reasons. But that's where I want to dive into right now, right? Because Sashe, I'm going to come to you on this one. So I remember conversations with you when that process was happening, because we were trying to find ways to kind of merge the digital and also the virtual solutions to see what we can bring to the market. So what kind of triggered that thought process for you, which then kind of now brought both Eva and myself into digital as a team? And we'll come into how digital looks like right now compared to where it was before. But what triggered that thought in you that brought us here?
There are a couple of things, right? So one is we always had this engagement solution, but we didn't probably put enough investment behind it. But obviously when this happened, and Eva alluded to the fatigue and stress and things like that, companies started talking about employee engagement a lot more. They started talking about wellness a lot more, and that kind of triggered us. We responded to that and said, listen, we need to kind of focus on that and invest into that and kind of build out that product a little bit more. We already had a base product, but we wanted to build out on that. So that's when Budaya came about, and Eva came back to the team, and from R&D into digital. And then for Necole, it was interesting because we were trying to push out platform sales, and we realized that that's probably too much of a leap for the current market. So like I said, we evolved, we learned, and we need to ease people into the platform. And the way we thought about it is that let's do learning as a service, but learning as a digital service, right? And so for that, we needed to layer transactions. We needed to do things like that. And then looking at what you were doing, which was virtualizing all the stuff that was happening in the training space. So that was kind of the middle gray area, right? So there's your traditional, there's your virtualized, and then there's your digital. And we both needed to encroach into the middle. We can't be at the ends, right? So then that's when we had a conversation, say, hey, listen, why don't you come and do that using our digital platform? So virtualized services, but on a digital platform. And it just made a lot more sense as a way to ease clients into digital.
Right. Eva,
they were struggling too, so they were figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Eva, how about you? Like, I remember at that point, I was already in the digital team, and then your story started to come back to the digital team, and we're having a little bit of a slight snigger that Eva's coming back home. So
wait. So let's just set up the timeline here. So Nigesh, you came back into digital team in 2020. So you
October.
joined in 2018. You started the digital team 2020, and so Eva, you left digital
2016, I think.
You left digital 2016, and you came back in 2020 as well.
Yeah.
Yep. So Eva, perhaps for me, the question here is, we know why you came back, because we needed someone to lead one of our products, but perhaps why do you believe in the product, which we'll talk about a bit more, or the solution we'll talk about a bit more, but why did you believe in that particular solution, that particular product, and what compelled you to come back?
Yeah, so I mean, for one, I'm part of the furniture here, so I go wherever I'm needed the most. But in addition to that, I really do believe in what we're trying to do on the engagement side over here. So from when we started piloting the product, which is the base technology that we were using for Budaya Happily, when we started actually piloting it internally last year, I think it was right after the MCO actually hit. The first time that we went on lockdown. So from the very beginning, I immediately saw that there's a lot of use in something like this. It's very fresh. It's very new. It can actually give a lot of insights to managers. It can keep people going with a lot of perks, whether it's just the colors or just the getting the feedback and getting coins and redeeming for rewards and all that. So I did actually believe in the tool itself before I came in. On the other side, I also thought that Leaderonomics, we focus a lot more on the learning aspect of things in general. even if we take the mentoring solution that we have, that's specifically focusing on the on the learning side of things. So how do we get people to learn more? And we're all about that. I mean, the research that I did is all about, how do you take an individual and help them to develop and become a better, more effective leader throughout their lives and all that. But then there was always a piece missing. So we're also looking at, how do we make organizations being a lot more effective? And learning is definitely one side of things, but then there's this engagement side. How do you get people to be committed? How do you understand people? How do you make sure that you help them along the way so that they stay interested, they stay engaged, they stay passionate about what it is that they're working on? And I felt that, now what is now Budaya, back then it was just Happily, it can actually help organizations with that. And that's why I said, yeah, sure, let me come back and be here again and keep bugging you with questions. But yeah.
We're glad to have you, Eva. And okay, before we go on, I foresee that we may go a little bit over time. So for the both of y'all, how are you guys doing on timing? You guys okay?
We're good.
Yeah.
All right, good. So actually a little story on Happily before I move the story to Necole, and something that happened during that October time period last year, which kind of led us into 2021. Another crazy story from Roshan, which happened October last year, right? But Happily, I think we do test a lot of the solutions on ourselves first before it goes out of the market. And that gives us a little bit of an indication of how can we bring it out. We're not always right, but it at least gives us an indication. So Happily, I remember it came out, I think, perfectly at the timing where we kind of really needed it, which was we went into lockdown and Happily was launched internally and we started using it. And all of us were like, hey, at least now we still got this. We don't see each other, but we got the space. We've got the space, which is on our phones. We carry it around all the time. Yes, it's digital, but it feels like, yes, we're still conversing with each other. We're still letting each other know how we're doing. I have some light competitions here and there, that kind of thing. It's sort of a solution that came to us at the right time, at the point where we had that pain. So that really worked for us. And I think for me, that's why I believe in that tool. I believe in it, that I use it quite often as well. And I think it'd be something great for everybody. But that comes in this story, right? I think, Sashe, you kind of said this a little bit just now. With our story of trying to create all these solutions, but why wasn't the market biting? And probably it was because the pain was not there just yet. Or people were avoiding thinking about that pain because maybe it's a little bit of denial. Maybe the imperatives are not there quite yet. And I think even before that came about, we tried to again push into the market. And this was that crazy story from October last year. So again, I remember this happening just before October hit. And we were at that point able to go back to the office for a short bit. And Roshan was calling each one of us into his room, not just the ones you see on screen here, but many other Leaderonomics into his room, and like, okay, we're going to do this push. I believe that Necole is going to be this product that everybody's going to use because everyone's going to be digital right now. They need to have learning and development in their company. Let's try to get this out to everybody, and let's get 100,000 users for Necole by the end of the year. And when he said that, initially all of us were, I mean, I speak for myself. I was really doubting that was going to happen. But again, trying to think back on things that Roshan has said that were crazy, but ended up being something in the end. So we had this in his room. His room is a glass room, and there were this panel which faces the main office. There were so many different ideas written down there. And he was trying to attach names to each idea. Who can do this? Who can lead this? Who can lead this? Who can lead this? Who can lead this? And numbers to how much subscriptions we'll get out of each one of those ideas. And this is all us without knowing what's out there, thinking, yeah, sure, can do, because this is what the market wants. And we went at it. We gave it a try. I'm not afraid to admit it. We failed. We didn't achieve what we intended to achieve. But there's a silver lining after that. There's a very big silver lining after that whole 3 months. It was tiring for a lot of people. And I think also people were struggling with internal belief on whether we can do this or not, because as much at that point, using Happily and Necole internally in the company, not many believed in Necole just yet, because we didn't see the pain, we didn't see the need quite yet, we didn't see how it fit into our lives at that point. So even internally we had trouble believing in it. And for me as well, I was figuring out, sure, I'm supposed to lead this, but I am also struggling to believe in it. And everybody, I think, got worn down quite a bit. So before I sort of move to the silver lining, I want to ask, because both of y'all were in that picture as well, what were doing different things during that period of time. And I remember having long conversations with Eva, like, why are we doing this? I remember those conversations. But how did it feel for both of y'all? How did it feel for both of y'all? And let's have these two questions together with that. Why do you think Roshan suggested that to us at that point in time? And what do you think we got out of it at the end of the day? Let's start with Eva first.
Okay, so why did he suggest it to us at that point in time? I think, I think we were in the lockdown for a few months. The research out there, going back to the geekiness now, so the research out there essentially said that, this lockdown is really going to accelerate our journey towards digitalization, whether it's, in the learning sphere, or whether it's, automation when we're looking at different companies and the way that they're running things. So essentially, it's just like jumping onto the bandwagon and just, getting started early so that we actually have a chance in this area as well. So the why to me is essentially that perhaps maybe a way to sort of scare us, but at the same time sort of excite us at the same time as well. Something new to do. I think to me, being in the volunteer Necole side of things, and trying to figure out new ways of putting it out there and everything, it was definitely stressful for sure, but at the same time it was also quite exciting, trying to think of new ways to look at this thing that we were trying to do and see, okay, how can we be creative over here? And I think we came up with a lot of crazy ideas as a big group, and we tried a lot of it.
40 something or 50 something ideas that came up.
Yeah, some crazy amount of ideas. But we all gave it due thought. We all had to go through and say, no, but, like, this is what's going to happen. No, this is not going to work. This is going to work. So we tried and tested a lot of different things. Sorry, what was your second question again?
First is why, and second is what do you think we got out of that?
Yeah, the what we got out of it, I think it's just the idea that a lot can be achieved with very little, and in situations of crisis. So I think for me that would be the main point that I got out of it.
And Sashe?
Well, I'm going to take a different angle here. The big picture view is that you need different kinds of people in companies to succeed, and one of the characters that you need in a company to succeed is a visionary, right? Someone who says, make a plan to land on Mars, and even if you don't and you wind up landing on the moon, it's actually further than you would have ever gotten, right? And that was the role, right? Roshan's role is to be the visionary, to set daunting goals that scares everybody else, right? That nobody else would even dare speak. But then there's other people in the company, right? So it's like the three of us, and lots of other people in the company whose role is then to plan and to learn and to inspire and to bring people along and to do a lot of things like that. So I think that was why, like I said, that was an opportunity. Let's not kid around. We were needing financial, we needed the revenue, right? We were hurting financially because of the pandemic. So we needed daunting goals, right? We couldn't just keep doing the same. It wasn't working, right? So somebody needed to shake us up and challenge us to do something different. And so that's important. But at the same time, it's hard balance, right? To say not too much of a stretch that people don't even try, because it's just too big a leap, right? I can't climb Mount Everest right now. Maybe Mount KK is better. So so I think that was that balance that was going on that whole last quarter. How do we manage this? How do we keep people motivated? How do we engage people at the same time have a daunting goal? So I learned a lot on that. I learned a lot personally about how to manage that balance between goals and people and agile, and to be lean but yet to invest, to be agile but not too agile that you burn people out. So there's this nice balance that you learned. But you know what? That 40, 50 ideas, some of those evolved into what we're working on today. Right? So we found a lot of ways that don't work, but we also found ways that are workable. So even the new strategies that we're working on with Indonesia and other things is actually born out of that. Right? Things that we tried that we might not have tried unless somebody set that goal and said, come up with these ideas. So so good things happen if you manage and don't crash and burn in between.
Yeah, and I think I want to take that point, that don't crash and burn in between. And sometimes it's that, right? You're riding a rocket and you're just saying to yourself, like, look, I want to hold on to this as long as I can until I land this rocket somewhere, and that's my job, to hold on to this as long as I can. And the truth is there. And I think, like, when initially Roshan came up with that idea, and then that was the point I was actually transitioning into the digital team as well. And the responsibility I felt, no one put it on me, no one said it. Sashe was really nice. He never ever said that this is your job, you gotta get this done. No one did that. Roshan never did that as well. But Roshan, if anything, I would say that Sashe is right. There's people or individuals, and they come at different times. It doesn't necessarily only be Roshan, it can be other people as well. They challenge you to just do something completely out of reality, right? Of course, if it's someone who sets the direction, more so than often it happens. And when he did, I felt that weight of responsibility, that stress, that if this doesn't happen, we are in trouble. Because I know it may seem rosy from the outside, but we were struggling. We were struggling financially, and we needed to find a way out. And one of it was this is supposed to be the ticket to get our way out, but it didn't happen the way that we thought it would happen. But we really did learn a lot from that. And for one thing, our shift on how we looked at Necole and how we looked at digital platforms or systems really changed during that point in time. We were looking at it as Necole platform, happily platform. Now it's Budaya. And that was what people needed. But at that point, that was not the pain. And that taught us to think of what actually is people's pain, and how do people actually understand these things. Because if you go give someone Microsoft Office without them needing it or having a reason to have it in the first place, they wouldn't use it. We thought about, okay, maybe the whole idea is to show them or understand what their pain is, and then here's the solution. And the solution is a digital form solution. That taught us so much during that period of time. The other thing was, how do we market to market? How do we go to market in the first place? Initially, we were trying to go broad, like everything, whether it is the B2B market, the B2C market, the B2B to X market, go for it, go for everything. But then we also started understanding, look, how do we use our resources well? What Eva said before, like, we can achieve so much with a small number of people. It's just we need to know where and how to use the small number of people most effectively. And that's what we figured out during that time. Where do we need to focus? Where do we need to put our brains and brawn at, so that we get the most effective result? And that was no short journey as well. Like, after the 3 months was done, I think even now we're still going through that process of figuring out. But if one thing we became better in all those shifts, were we started understanding how we can work more effectively, how we can focus our efforts more effectively, and how we can bring it to market more effectively. Hence why nowadays, I don't know if you agree with me, Eva and Sashe, but the conversations we're having nowadays, when it especially comes to the business, how we structure ourselves, how do we go to market, what does the market need, how do we understand what the market need, has really changed from then to now. So what do you feel? Do you think that happened? Like, did we learn those things along the way?
Oh yeah, lots of things happens, right? Even the structure of the product owner and how we structured the teams was as a result of that. How we scaled back our aspirations on B2C was a result of that. We did a quick 3-month experiment, figured out, that wasn't going to be the one that wins for us. And then, we scaled back on that. So a lot of things that we do, like I said, we learned and we learned it very quickly in those few months, right? But we continue to learn, right? We're still making mistakes. We're continuing to learn. And that's the story. That's the real story, right? If anybody heard this story today, we're kind of like peeling back the layers of Leaderonomics. A lot of times people see it from the outside. They don't see what happened all along the journey, right? And so we kind of peeled back a few layers. But the story is we continuously are going to learn and evolve and change, and the product's going to change and the team's going to change, and we're going to reconfigure how we go to market. We're going to continue to do that. That's just what's needed.
All right. And Sashe, from our producer, kind of said this. He got something from Larry Page. Always work hard on something uncomfortably exciting.
Oh, that's
Wise
nice.
Words.
I like that.
Wise words, Sashe.
Yeah.
Eva, what do you think?
Put that up on screen if we can.
Yes. Yeah. So Sashe, go drop a comment and bring it up on screen. But Eva, what do you think? Like, what was that journey like in your eyes? And yeah, did we get there?
I don't think we can ever say that we got there. I don't think this is something that ends, not in the short term anyway, not within the year or 2 years or 3 years. I think it's something that we keep adding on pieces. But I think that's what I like about our team. Actually, I think the fact that we are courageous enough to keep innovating and keep sort of reinventing different things and trying out different ways of doing things, because I think it's not something that you can just get right from the beginning. I think it's something that does take a lot of experimentation, and I think having the people that are willing to go through the different trials and learn, more importantly, take the lessons and actually build on them to actually come up with a version 2 and version 3. I think that's the important thing that we got out of this. And we'll probably continue to just do the same for the years to come until we actually get it right. I don't think it's going to be this year or next year, but we just keep reinventing and we keep adding on new elements to it. And I think that's only fair since everyone is just looking at new challenges on a daily basis.
Yeah, and the market keeps changing too.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know if we're ever going to get it right on the ball kind of thing, because the market keeps shifting, it keeps changing. And we are lucky in a sense that we thought what the market needed last year, but they were not ready for it. I don't know. I have this feeling that it is in a way coming to us, because now there is an understanding for the need, because we know that this is going to be a completely new normal, and the new normal statement is now really setting in for everybody here. And I think an important message I kind of want to bring back for everybody who's listening or watching the show, and this will be on podcast later, by the way, but it is that whole, don't be afraid to try. I think if anything, don't be afraid to try. But most importantly, don't discard. Because Sashe said this just now. A lot of that 50 plus ideas that we came with last year, sure, we never got very far with many at that time, but over time, as we understood, okay, there is this pain, there is this potential problem that we can solve. Wait a minute, we thought of this idea before. We did. Now is the right time to use it. Now is the right time to actually approach and use that idea. I'll even say, like, we had a huge idea with affiliates in the past. That didn't work out back then, but lo and behold, right now, there's an idea behind affiliates that can actually work. And that came back again. So I think for everybody listening out there, especially when you're making these kind of big shifts, and it's very uncomfortable, it is. And when you do something, it may not work out the way you want it to. It will, most of the time it won't, but it'll work out some other way. And it's actually our responsibility to realize, what is this other way that it worked out to? And what can I do from here? Because if we don't do that, then we give up. And then there's no one else to blame but us. And this can go as big as the entire business, or even as small as your task that you're doing right now, right? And I think that's a good segue right now to kind of move into what are we looking forward to right now? What are we looking forward to, especially with what are we bringing into the market? And I think there are some questions on the comments area, which I'll bring up in a short while. I didn't forget you guys. I'll bring up in a short while. But let me speak first on the Necole side. Then we'll have Eva speak on the Budaya side. And then let's have Sashe kind of give us an overall view of what we are looking forward to. Too soon, Sashe, too soon. No need to bring this up just yet. You're excited, Eddie. No, so I think on the Necole side, because for me personally, I've always been in the space of learning, development, working with others, trying to find new ways to make others be better and make myself lose a job. So that's what I really am passionate about. And when I first joined Leaderonomics, I think that one thing that stuck out to me was I'm able to practice all of that and everything I've gotten over the years that I've worked in one space to affect a lot of people. And that still holds true right now, especially with now a solution like Necole. And Necole is no more just a platform. To me, it's no more just a platform. It is actually everything that comes with it. Figuring out that, look, when it comes to learning, there are better ways for you to learn theory. You don't have to go and sit down in a class to learn theory. You can do it yourself. And more often than not, we are doing it ourselves. And we'd like to learn in small bites. So that's something that we can leverage. We want to be able to then plug it with different kind of interventions or different kind of levels of complexities based on the need, based on the pain. And that flexibility is what we realize that the platform can start doing and build all that solutions around it. And then it starts building this whole thing where, okay, I'm now able to skill myself, but if all of us are in one space, and this is the great enabler what digital can do for you. When you're all in one space, you have an ecosystem, you have people there, you have data that's coming in, you have ways to analyze, to understand how people are reacting to things. You have ways to now interact with them in very different ways to keep them going. And it's not just one time, it's for a long time. And that's my hope, at least, or that's my belief in what this will come to. This will become a solution that becomes hopefully ubiquitous, whether it is through our platform itself, but that solution becomes something that is ubiquitous. And being able to play a part in it, whether it's creating the content for people, whether it's using our platform to deliver it, delivering so many different experiences via Necole. And on top of that, now being able to reach more people. Like last time we used to say cost is a problem. Now we're finding ways how to not make it so costly that now more people can jump on it. And there's one story which is sticking out to me right now from last week where we were having this conversation. We are actually talking to the tourism industry here in the country. So this is a conversation that I'm having with some of the bodies. And finding that we can actually plug a hole for them when they are struggling so badly is very uplifting. And to have a platform that is able to, yes, it's a learning and development platform and solution, but having that's able to do these kind of things, now that's a great enabler. And for me, I think Necole, for me, is to be that great enabler to actually move people from where you are now and where you can be in future, and through the next future and the next future. Eva, what about you with Budaya?
Yeah. So likewise on the engagement side of things, I suppose. So what we are trying to do essentially with Budaya is really help companies have something that is very holistic, very wholesome when we're looking at employee engagement in your organization. So how do we help organizations have something that is consistent, systematic, but also at the same time giving you a lot of data intelligence, employee intelligence on how your people are doing at any given time, any day of the week, really, just to try to understand them better. And then we're also coming from the perspective, how do we help different groups in the organization actually make the most of all the different things that are happening through Budaya and the base solution that is happening. So how do we help managers, for example, make sure that they have better conversations, a better understanding of how their team is feeling, how they're doing, what are their main challenges, what exactly are the problem areas that they need to spend a lot more effort in order to help their teams. So to me, Budaya is actually very interesting because it allows organizations to get all these different things with a simple sort of app that is just sitting on your phone. It's very colorful, as you can see from the visuals that Sashe just put up there. So essentially, by having a few different activities that you do on a daily basis through the app, but also the different frameworks and guides and sort of advice that we give along the way as well along the year. How do you make sure that you help your people understand better what it is that they are going through, how to help your managers understand their teams better, and also their organization understand the overall health of the company. So imagine, being able to sort of predict whether people are, really stressed, thinking about leaving your organization. Imagine whether you can actually settle certain issues that they may be facing with productivity or different things that are holding them back in terms of providing the best customer service that they can and all that. So it's definitely quite exciting. We recently launched it, so it's fairly new as a Budaya sort of package altogether.
Right. And Sashe, before you answer the big question, the ultimate plan question, like what do you hope, what do you feel, what's your belief? I've got this question which is from Eva as well, and perhaps you can touch on it as you speak on that, right? Would you anticipate the target market will become more actively engaged in digital solutions during the post-pandemic? That means after this, right? Since they're getting more used to it, or do you see a potential growth and peak in it? Perhaps try to answer this and layer it with what do you see as that big picture plan for us moving forward?
I think definitely, and I think it goes at different speeds and at different stages for different markets. You can't compare Malaysia to the US, and at the same time, you can't compare some of the other countries to Malaysia, right? Each country is kind of moving at its own space. They're maturing as markets, right? And as you become more mature, you're going to become more digital, right? And that's good, and so that's good for us, but that's also good for the market. I think it's more scalable, more effective. But digital is not going to replace everything. There's still going to be some non-digital stuff, right? So we'll get into that another time. But the idea really is that it will become more prolific. That the market will become more active, more engaged in digital solutions. We'll just have to be, at the right time, at the right markets when we do that.
Right.
But ultimately, I think here's my big picture focus, right? There's lots and lots of products out there, right? Lots, right? A lot more than you can imagine, right? A lot more than you've never heard of. The amount of investment that's being pumped into this digital space, especially learning and engagement, is incredible. But that's the problem. It's all product companies that are taking this money and building products in a kind of a silo, right? And I think we have a huge part to play. What I want to see is these products becoming very effective. And in order for them to be effective, you can't look at it as a single product. You got to look at it as an ecosystem of products. And whether that means services that support products, because ultimately you're trying to solve a problem. You're trying to achieve an objective. And a product by itself is just a product. It's a tool. It's a vehicle, right? So how do we build this ecosystem out? And so whether that means all these products need to be integrated and the data needs to be analyzed effectively, that's the way we will go. That's where we think we need to go. And the phrase that we keep talking about is employee intelligence, right? We need to get to a part where we have complete employee intelligence that we can then use to really help people, to develop, to be engaged, to be more productive, to be, having a better employee experience in their companies. And how do we get there? Individual products by themselves are not going to get there. So we want to be the ecosystem player. We want to be the one that pulls it all together and brings that employee intelligence about. So that's the big picture. That's where we're headed. We have a portfolio of products around us. We'll continue to develop that. We'll continue to grow that. But at the same time, we'll keep continuing to layer services and intelligence on top of it so that we have an offering that's valuable to the market.
So in short, we're building Skynet. Don't tell anybody. All right. So yeah, I think that's a plan that we hope one day we'll realize, and hopefully that's going to add value to the market out there, especially when we keep on talking about business shifts, but people need to shift with the business as well. And if we can make informed decisions and also have the connecting solutions along with those decisions, I think that would make a huge shift of how businesses can both shift responsibly and also profitably. And that's a key thing that we're trying to drive towards. But this show, Talk to Me, is always about what do we really impart with everybody. I know we spoke about our story, and yes, not shy to say this is a little bit of a plug for Leaderonomics Digital as well, but what did we get from our story? I think that the key learnings that we got from our story here today, maybe let's try to wrap that up and kind of give everyone a little bit of a key takeaway from this conversation that we have. Sashe, maybe we'll start with you. And before we start with you, can we have Roshan's comment from LinkedIn up? There's actually an article which Sashe wrote, which is on our Leaderonomics website. So I think it's good for you to go and check out that. I think that article is on empowering HR through digital transformation. So Sashe, what do you think? This conversation today, what is the thing that businesses out there, managers of different groups of people, or even individuals who are working at home watching this can take away from our conversation?
So I think I love the quote that Sashe shared earlier, right? Always work hard on something uncomfortably exciting. I think that kind of encapsulates what the key message is. You gotta always be working on something, right? You can't just stick to what you know, what you've done, what's worked, right? You've got to always be uncomfortably excited about something, and don't fear it, right? You at the very least you learn what not to do, but you got to keep moving and you got to keep having that agile mindset. I think that's my key takeaway.
Eva?
Yeah, so to me, I suppose it comes back to agility, innovation, being willing to try and test it out. It comes back to having faith in the right kind of people, or the people in your team to actually do something with what you're giving them. So as if we are talking about, helping organizations, inspire some kind of change, transformation, I think I would probably emphasize that side of things. So how do you trust people? How do you empower them with the right amount of trust, the right amount of tools and knowledge as well to actually do something and keep experimenting and keep coming up with new ideas as well.
Okay. And if you're hearing some rumble noises, that's rain coming for us here. It's not explosions.
It's not my stomach from being hungry.
Yeah, speaking of which, I'm hungry too. But okay, so mine would be, we've kind of mentioned a few things, like, of course, the agility part of it, the part of actually that quote from Larry Page as well, work hard on something uncomfortably exciting. The thing of you can have a lot of ideas, sure, take a crack at it, but don't discard them because they'll come back again. But I think one thing of everything, because anything we've mentioned here is not really rocket science. It is not. You go learn from any books, you read anything, hopefully a Necole, and you go watch any videos, whatsoever. They will mention to you, these are the things that you can do. These are the steps you should take to start transforming your organization. It's not rocket science. Everybody shares it. But I think the part that everybody kind of needs is bravery. If there's one thing that I constantly take from our CEO, Roshan, is that absolute optimism and bravery to try something. Like, we would all be too realistic sometimes and try to say, nah, that's not going to work kind of thing. But he still pushes us. He still gets us out of our own way to just try it. It doesn't matter if it fails, but try it. That bravery to actually do it. I think I would like to impart that with everybody who's listening. Whichever position you are in, it's tough to make a change because change is very uncertain. You don't know, right? You don't know what's going to come out at the other end. But if you don't try, you will never know. So have the bravery and try it. If you fail, doesn't matter. It actually gives you an ability to try again later. But of course, design it in a way that you have that opportunity to try it again later. Right. So that would be my sort of parting to everybody. So I think we've come to the end of the conversation. We went a bit longer. And for those of y'all who are still there listening to us, thank you so much. There was some more comments coming out as well. I think there's a huge one here from Timothy, which we will answer later on. Timothy, I'm not going to read through the whole thing right now, but we will answer you after this. All right. We will answer you after this. So, some things that I would like everybody who's listening or watching to look forward to is this whole week, we're actually going to have close to every day different shows on different aspects of things that we're discussing, especially in this time of shift where we are thinking about the 3 R's of reimagining, renew, and rebound. And tomorrow is actually the debut of one of our new shows together with Lisa Wong, right? So we've been working on this for a while. She's actually excited to debut the show tomorrow, 9 p.m. Malaysian time. Her show is called Breakthrough, and she's actually speaking to the guy who coins or uses this term "make a shift" a lot, Anthony Trucks. So do watch that show tomorrow night. That's your night watch for tomorrow. Breakthrough with Lisa Wong. There you go, right up there. All right. Mastering the mindsets of high achievers. So check out that show, Breakthrough, tomorrow. That's happening. And then, that's a lot, thunder. And then on Wednesday, we have Psyched coming your way. And this one is going to be with Sashe, because he's probably the most aware of all of us when it comes to technology. But we're going to actually talk about the joys and perils of digital technology. It's not all fun and games. So join Psych, that's hosted by our CEO Roshan and also Andrea as well, who has honestly a great mind when it comes to these kind of things. So you really want to check out that one. Then on Friday, we have 2 shows coming to you back to back. Earlier in the day, we have Rethinking Balance Sheet. This is with our CEO Roshan as well as Ravi from Sage 3. And we have a guest who we talked to previously on Tech Talk Friday from La Pasar. So that's about preparing for the revolution. And finally, to kind of cap off this whole week, we have Tech Talk Friday. And that's about shifting the tech in your business. And I get to talk to Teo Pui Man, founder of Speed Brick, about that. So do join us throughout this whole week. You can find the links on both LinkedIn, Facebook, or even on YouTube. And if you're part of Necole, it's all there as well. Now, not only that, for those of y'all who've been joining the shows and for the entire week, we're actually giving an opportunity for you to get Necole for 5% off. So there's a promo code on the scroller at the bottom, make a shift. So go on to Necole.app. Wow, very nice. I've got emoticons all nowadays. So go to Necole.app, use the promo code make a shift, get 5% off throughout this whole week. And can we have the splash screen right now, Sashe? Now it's not too late. Now it's the right time. All right. So for organizations out there, so I can't stress enough how passionate I am about what we're doing. And we really do want to reach out to you to try to find a solution for you. Necole is an enabling platform. But what's more key is we want to find out what kind of pain you have so that we can try to work with you to prepare your organization and your people for the future. So check out Necole and how he can help your organization. Visit us at Necole.tech. All right, that's Necole.tech. And yes, they are multi-platform solutions, whether it's a desktop or web. And also at the same time, if you want to, and especially this pandemic era and even post that, we're going to probably work from home more than in offices. So if you want to find out more about engagement, culture creation, and people intelligence, drop by Budaya.app and find out what that solution is about, how we are trying to find ways to elevate employee experiences through technology as an enabler. All right. So visit Budaya.app to find out about that. And of course, if everything you've heard here during the story has kind of sparked a thought in you and you want to start talking to us about something, either any one of our solutions or even just a thought, do email us at learn@leaderonomics.com. That's the best way to get to all of us at the same time. learn@leaderonomics.com. All right. Now, with all that plugs done, so we've come to the end of this Tech Talk conversation. I had fun. I had fun doing this live, and nice to see some of the comments coming out. And we hope to really see you throughout the week. I think this is for the 3 of us here. We hope to see you throughout the week, joining all our different shows. there's some comments which we are talking about internally here, but maybe I'll just do a quick shout out to, I don't know if I'm reading this right. Hey, what the hell? Happy birthday to everyone who's having an August birthday, because I know a few people who are, including someone in the house here. So that's just a quick plug for everybody.
I think Nigesh, it was Leaderonomics' birthday.
Oh, it's Leaderonomics' birthday as well.
In August, in 13 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you go. So I'm reading the comments wrongly. 13 years, guys. 13 years. Maybe it's lucky number 13. Sashe, any last words before we kind of sign off?
No, looking forward to the rest of the shows. I really think it's a great lineup of shows with different, topics, different guests. Yeah, looking forward to that. Thanks for having me on.
Eva?
Yeah, that will be all from me as well. Thanks for having us on the show, and all the best with the rest of the shows. Exciting week ahead. So.
Yep. And to everybody out there, stay safe. Stay safe if you're hearing this either as you watch the show or later on during the podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Get yourself vaccinated. Keep social distancing. Wear those masks. Even though we get some freedoms, it's good to be careful for a while. And we hope to have you with us in a different space. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful week ahead.